floor. They're counting the keys to the heavy oak door. They didn't use hammers, they didn't use lead. They used a bit of Latin to get inside your head. The gaffers in shadows, they play the long game, using the guilt and the fear and the blame. But we've seen the blueprint, we found out the name. Let's give them a burden, let's give them a debt, a thing they can't pay and can never forget. A proper dark blueprint, a clever old scheme to turn every waking into a terrified dream. They knew that a man who is standing quite tall is a man who won't listen and won't heed the call. So they bent down his chin and they clouded his eye and told him he's lucky to even just try. The gaffers in shadows, they play the long game, using the guilt and the fear and the blame. But we've seen the blueprint, we found out the name. It's a blinding big malice, a cold-hearted art to plant a small winter inside of a heart. Watching the mothers all beat on their chest while the architects smile and they take a long rest. They plan for the shyness, they plan for the shame. They gave every natural feeling a bad another name, keeping the paddock so narrow and tight to make sure nobody would look for the light. The gaffers in shadows, they play the long game, using the guilt and the fear and the blame. But we've seen the blueprint, we found out the name. Evolution is noticing the trap was designed to keep us from using our own proper mind. The tragedy wasn't a mistake or a slip, it was the tighten of the hand on the psychological whip. But a plan only works if the mud doesn't see that the cage is wide open and the lock has no key. Once you start playing and having a laugh, you're walking right off their predictable path. The gaffers in shadows, they play the long game, using the guilt and the fear and the blame. But we've seen the blueprint, we found out the name. So let them have their maps and their dusty old files. We're crossing the borders with blinding big smiles. The Mao Daddy loses its power and its spark when we turn on the sun in the middle of dark. But the ink is all fading on their ancient old scrolls, and they're losing the grip on our proper big souls, because a plan that is built on a mug's little fear starts to crumble the moment the vision is clear. The gaffers in shadows, they play the long game, using the guilt and the fear and the blame. But we've seen the blueprint, we found out the name. I'm telling my son as he looks at the sky, don't let him tell you that you're born with a lie. You aren't a dead, you aren't a mistake, you're a blinding old light that is starting to wake. We're breaking the light and we're breaking the spell, leaving the shame at the bottom of the well. No more mea culpa to please a dark room. We're choosing the sun and we're choosing the bloom. The gaffers in shadows, they play the long game, using the guilt and the fear and the blame. But we've seen the blueprint, we found out the name.